106.6.
Hello, you're listening to the DVD Fever Show with Dom Robinson on Manchester's 106.6, and what you just heard there was Pixie Lot with Broken Arrow. Now, the DVD Fever Show is a new weekly show where I look through the week's releases of movies and video games, plus the charts, and look at what's new on TV, and news for all three. Now, DVDfever.co.uk is a non-profit website and has recently had a revamp, so please do take a look. And if you've got anything to say about anything you hear on the show today, get in touch via the Facebook page. Just go onto Facebook and search for the DVD Fever Show with Dom Robinson. And while you're on there, just like the page if you've not done it already, because yeah, it's good. That's what I think. And if you want to add me on Facebook, at the moment I've got a picture of me which is as a cartoon head mask from Ideal, and I'll tell you later on how that came about. It's certainly much better than my own face anyway. Now, in this week's show, what we've got coming up, we've got a review of, well, the first hour is all about films, and in the first hour we've got a Blu-ray review of Apocalypse Now, Redux, or Redo, I don't know how you meant to pronounce that. The top 10 movie charts, new cinema releases, including Ryan Reynolds in The Green Lantern, Martin Freeman in Swinging with the Finkles, and Mel Gibson in The Beaver. We've also got a look at new DVD releases, including Paul and True Grit, and some film news. So I'm going to start off with the review of Apocalypse Now, Redux, and I'm going to do it in two parts, because normally I wouldn't go into detail about all the extras that come with a release on DVD or Blu-ray, but there's so much in this, and it's like it really does, you know, it deserves a bit. It's a classic film. It deserves a big heap of extras, and that's what you get with this one. Anyway, talking about the film itself, bizarre and captivating are two words I can use to describe Apocalypse Now. Francis Ford Coppola's contribution to Vietnam War films, which has neither opening nor official closing credits. In fact, when I first saw the film at Kiel Film Society in the early 1990s, the print we saw had the apocalyptic end sequence with the closing credits played over the top. This version was later released on video, but in this package, both versions of the film just come to an end without them, and that is exactly how those who saw the original 70mm cinematic presentation of the film, ending with Willard sailing off into the distance and a 1979 copyright notice appearing on screen. As the customers left the cinema, they were handed a brochure with printed credits. Now, about the film itself, Captain Benjamin L. Willard, Martin Sheen, is back in the jungle for another tour of duty. He learns that the demented Colonel Walter E. Kurtz, Marlon Brando, is about to be arrested after he ordered the execution of some Vietnamese intelligence agents who were believed to be double agents. Or he believed were double agents. Willard's mission, should he choose to accept it, is to kill Kurtz, but the guy's alluring to himself, and it's not going to be a walk in the park. However, we learn that Kurtz was an exceptional colonel, so why did they want to put him out of his misery? That question will be answered when you watch it. There's many a poignant scene here, such as when hard-nosed Sergeant Kilgore, Robert Duvall, takes to bombing the Vietnamese by organising the gunships to charge to the strains of Wagner's Ride of the Valkyries, to a scene a little later when he utters the memorable phrase of "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." Dennis Hopper takes the role of an American photojournalist on the side of Kurtz, and their appearances from much younger Harrison Ford and Larry Fishburne, who lied about his age to get the part. He was only 14 at the time of filming when production began in 1976. Songs of the era are included, as is the controversial sacrificing of a cow as Kurtz is murdered. This scene was left in because it's part of a real-life ritual, despite the BBFC's tendency not to portray cruelty to animals. In addition, I only found out relatively recently that Marlon Brando never read his lines, or the source, so made it up on his arrival on set. No wonder he was terrible. In fact, he's the only bad thing about the film itself. Sheen is superb in the role, with able support coming from the boat crew, Frederick Forrest, Albert Hall, Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Bottoms, the latter of whom, I noticed after watching this, sadly died in 2008 from brain cancer. Apocalypse Now is still a remarkable film, 32 years on. And I've always thought when I watch this, it's a fabulous film, right up until Willard's meeting with Kurtz, at which point it all slows down to a crawl, and Brando slurs his words, which doesn't make for fascinating viewing. Still, the rest of it is wonderful. Both original 1979 and 2001 Redux versions are included here, but having watched them both, I would only go back to the regular version. As well as one or two small scenes which are nice to see added back into the film, like the ones I'm about to tell you about in a bit. There's an overlong segment involving some French colonials, which goes on far too long and didn't need to be included. Of the scenes put back into the film, the following ones were good to see included, most of the first ones featuring all of those with Kilgore. In the original version, Willard first meets Kilgore when asking a fellow officer, who simply replies, "He's over there, you can't miss him." In the Redux version, the officer now says, "There's the colonel coming down." We later learn that Kilgore is arriving via helicopter to the scene, and when he arrives, he tells an officer riding with him, "Lieutenant, bomb that back tree line about 100 yards, give us room to breathe." He later asks another for his death cards, which he uses in the original version. After Kilgore has ordered an airstrike, a Vietnamese mother with a wounded child in hand runs to Kilgore. Kilgore immediately takes the child and tells his men to rush the child to hospital, mother as well, on his chopper. Another one, after the helicopter carrying the wounded child leaves, Kilgore hands Lance a new pair of shorts to go surfing in. Now, throughout the original cut, Lance is wearing them, but it's never explained how he got them. After giving the famous napalm speech, Kilgore soon learns that the napalm has changed the wind current, ruining the perfect waves. Willard immediately uses this as an excuse to leave. He and Lance run back to the boat, but before they leave, Willard steals Kilgore's surfboard. Another one. Before Willard and Chef go on search for mangoes, there's a scene wherein the crew are seen lying around in a river. Chef asks Chief if he can go and get some mangoes while Willard goes with him. The Redux version contains a new scene before this, in which it is clear that the crew are hiding from Kilgore, who's trying to get his surfboard back. And a helicopter soon flies back carrying a recording from Kilgore, asking for the board back. That's quite amusing to watch. And I'll tell you about the scene that I didn't like. That goes back in. It says the longest addition to the film is a sequence that takes place after Clean's death. That's what's his name, Lawrence Fishburne's character. The crew find themselves in a French plantation in Cambodia. Willard tells the head of the plantation that they lost one of their men. He tells Willard that they will bury him to pay respects to the fallen of their allies. What later follows is a funeral for Clean, followed by the recital of a poem by one of the French children. The crew then has dinner with the new arrivals. Then Willard, sitting with the family, asks when they are going back to France. The family soon go into a long and lengthy argument over the First Indochina War and the Vietnam War. There is this dispute over quote-unquote traitors at home, e.g. the famous Henri Martin affair, and most of the family leaves in anger. After they all leave, one, Roxanne, apologises for her family's behaviour. She and Willard talk, smoke opium, and she later explains the conflicts for her deceased husband had faced himself during the Indochina War. After she undresses and approaches Willard, she tells him, "There are two of you, can't you see? One that kills and one that loves." We later see the crew back on the river, continuing the mission. Okay, that's the end of the first part of this review. I'll continue with, I'll have a look at all the extras in the next part, but in a moment we're going to be having listen to The Style Council and Shout to the Top.
106.6.
And you're back listening to Manchester's 106.6, and this is the DVDfever show with Dom Robinson. I'm halfway through doing a review of Apocalypse Now. So normally I would just get it all over and done with in one section, but I was gonna this next session is gonna look at the more technical aspects of the disc. So it's, you know, if you're not sort of into extras and stuff like that on a DVD or a Blu-ray, then bear with me for the next 5 minutes. But anyway, you warned, so there you go. Now, I had a beef with the original DVD release. I mean, basically, this is something that people who are big fans of Apocalypse Now are going to want to hear. But I had a beef with the original DVD release, but it was not the fault of the distributor. Originally shown in cinemas at the full widescreen ratio of 2.35 to 1, any print intended for viewing at home had at the time been cropped to 2.0 to 1 at the insistence of cinematographer Vittorio Storaro. Most scenes were still fine, but nothing could beat the original ratio, and to this day I've never understood his decision. I had previously seen a portion of this in the full widescreen ratio on German channel ZDF TV. Ich liebe die Smell dem Napalm im Morgen, anyone? Anyway, this Blu-ray release finally addresses this issue with a full theatrical ratio for both versions of the film and in full 1080p high definition. The picture is a little hazy in places, like some other previous releases by Optimum, but this only affects the film in a few scenes, so isn't majorly off-putting. The sound is in 5.1 DTS HD master audio, and aside from gunfire and explosions, the film is just oozing with atmosphere. That's all you need to know, basically. The extensive extras, which are spread across all 3 discs, are as follows. First of all, we start off with Hearts of Darkness, a filmmaker's apocalypse, which runs for just over an hour and a half. Probably the ultimate documentary. If you know the film, you know the documentary. Released in 1991, this gathered so much interest that it even found its way onto a separate release on video and later on DVD. After Francis Ford Coppola began in February 1976, After Francis Ford Coppola began in February 1976, what became an overlong 16-month shoot based on Joseph Conrad's novel Heart of Darkness, a documentary that sums up the director's own sufferings also became essential viewing, pinpointing his frustrations with the actors, locations and logistics. Footage by his own wife, Eleanor Coppola, is also included here, as she recorded a series of private conversations with her husband without his knowledge, originally intended for use as a reference for her own production diary. One of the darkest obstacles came when Martin Sheen had a heart attack while filming and ended up in hospital, causing them to bring in his brother, Joe Estevez, out to film some shots from behind of Willard, with Coppola telling the studio that Sheen had only gone in for treatment due to heat exhaustion, for fear of production being shut down. Also, the extras also include the John Melia script excerpt with Francis Ford Coppola's notes. This is a series of pages from the script with Coppola's own notes scrawled on it. It does make for a really impressive. Edition. But unfortunately, one of the problems with this is there's no way to zoom in on them, so you've got to get your nose pressed up right against your TV screen. It's a bit annoying. There's a storyboard collection which does what it says on the tin, and for an extra that runs longer than 11 minutes, with each storyboard image lasting around 3 seconds, that's a great deal of images here. I'll let you do the maths with that one. There's a photo archive with images aplenty taken during the filming of the movie. The marketing archive, which you get the 1979 theatrical trailer, 5 1979 radio spots, the 1979 theatrical programme that I mentioned earlier. Again, you'll have to squint on that one. A lobby card and press kit photos and a poster gallery. There's also an interview with John Milius, which runs for about 50 minutes. That's a new segment recorded last year between Milius and Coppola. I've got a conversation with Martin Sheen and Francis Ford Coppola, which runs for about an hour. That was recorded at the same time, and you can tell it was in the same building. I've got Fred Roos, casting Apocalypse, running for about 12 minutes. This is a very intriguing extra showing how Coppola and Roos audition people by getting them all together in one room to see how they play off each other, rather than seeing them one at a time. That works really well, actually. We've got the Mercury Theatre on the Air, Heart of Darkness from 1938. This is one of the episodes from the show created by Orson Welles in the 1930s. I've also got Brando's reading of the T.S. Eliot poem The Hollow Men from the film. There's 13 deleted scenes. Yes, deleted scenes. It was something that they actually left out of the film, would you believe? You'd think they just threw in everything, including the kitchen sink. I mean, most of them are worth a lot without going on too long. Well, most of them don't, except for one between Kurtz and Willard, as if we really needed that. There's a destruction of Kurtz's compounds, which this runs for about 6 minutes, and this is what I saw at Kiel, but with the credits on top. Now, the menu itself does state that the credits are included, but they aren't. The original DVD featured two versions of the credits, one with the destruction and one without, and it's the former which is included here, but sadly no way to make Coppola's commentary optional, nor to show the credits. That's an annoying omission, and basically about the only fault I can find with this release. There's one called The Birth of 5.1 Sound, with Walter Murch re-recording mixer starting off in this piece saying that the film was only ever going to be shown in one cinema and in the US, and it would be played for 10 years, so less like the average movie and more like a landmark. Ian Allen from Dolby Labs then goes on to tell us how we got from mono through quad surround and on to 5.1 surround. He also says that he thinks some home cinema buffs have their surround speakers and subwoofers turned up way too high. Yeah, I'm guilty of that. We've got the Ghost Helicopter Flyover. This is a piece about the disembodied helicopter at the start, which uses all 5 speakers, but which is never seen initially. There's one called The Apocalypse Now, the synthesizer soundtrack by Bob Moog. An article by electronic music pioneer Bob Moog, which originally appeared in the January 1980 issue of Contemporary Keyboard magazine, which is now known as Keyboard. Thankfully, in this case, the printed word is very easy to read. A Million Feet of Film, the editing of Apocalypse Now. This is a featurette. It runs for about 18 minutes. About the fact there was way too much footage shot than the average film. The music of Apocalypse Now runs for about 15 minutes. Now, I didn't realise that the music of The Doors was due to feature in the majority of this film. But that's just one interesting fact about this featurette. Obviously, in the end, they just went with the end. One called Heard Any Good Movies Lately? The Sound of Apocalypse Now. And this one goes into detail about the many subtle music cues that you wouldn't have spotted otherwise. One called The Final Mix, which is a short piece about how it took a massive 9 months just to put the sound together for this film. Then we got a chat between Roger Ebert and Coppola at Cannes in 2000, following it winning the Palme d'Or in 1979. And there's also the full chat with that, which runs for about 39 minutes. There's a section where they talk to all the people who are on the boat throughout the film, which is Lawrence Fishburne, Frederick Forrest, Albert Hall and Sam Bottoms. Something that only goes on for about 4 minutes. Another one that goes on for about 4 minutes is the one called The Colour Palette of Apocalypse Now, which has a look at the Technicolor process used to give the film its lush, vivid tones, which was quite a new thing at the time. And also an audio commentary from director Francis Ford Coppola. Now, the film itself, I'd give it an 8 out of 10 overall, because it's absolutely brilliant, as I say, up until Marlon Brando turns up, and then it just drags. But the package overall, because the picture's a little slightly off, no problems with the sound, and the extras are top notch. So 9 out of 10 overall, and it's about 18 quid on Amazon, so just go out and buy it. It's brilliant.
106.6.
And we're now moving on to the movie charts. Now again, there's no movie charts this week, as they were usually available from a few places, but seem to have disappeared from everywhere in recent weeks. Now, I've emailed the Internet Movie Database again to ask them if they're looking into this, and they said they are, but they've since updated them slightly, with the UK ones only until the end of May, and we're now in mid-June. Anyway, so we've got the American ones for you. Now, going straight in at number 1, a film called Super 8. Now, I put trailers for all of these on the Facebook page, so if you search for the DVD Fever Show with Dom Robinson, and we've got... in the summer of 1979, a group of friends in a small Ohio town witness a catastrophic train crash while making a Super 8 movie, and soon suspect that it was not an accident. Shortly after, unusual disappearances and inexplicable events begin to take place in town, and the local deputy tries to uncover the truth. Something more terrifying than any of them could have imagined. Written and directed by J.J. Abrams, who's been involved in the new Star Trek films. There's no one famous in this, but the trailer does show that it's a very expensive special effects movie, and looks like the archetypal summer blockbuster. That's certainly one I'm very much looking forward to. Number 2, we've got X-Men First Class. Down to number 3, we've got The Hangover Part 2. Number 4, Kung Fu Panda 2. Number 5, Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides. Number 6, Bridesmaids. A new film going in at number 7 called, I've never heard of this before, Judy Moody and the Not Bummer Summer. Now, again, there's a trailer for this on the Facebook page. Synopsis is as follows: that this summer, Judy Moody is planning the most super-duper double-rare summer vacation ever with best friends Rocky and Amy, except that it turns out that Rocky is going to circus camp to learn how to tame lions, and Amy is headed off to Borneo, as you do, with a mum to save a lost tribe, and Judy is stuck at home with her pesky little brother Stink and second best friend Frank Pearl. Just when she thinks things are as rotten as they can be, her parents announce that they will be going to California, and Judy will have to stay behind with her Aunt Opal, Heather Graham, who she's never even met. It looks like Judy's best summer ever has just become a way worse summer ever. Now, if I had to spend the whole summer with Heather Graham, I wouldn't complain. But anyway, she's the only famous person in this, but having scored just 3.2 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database, I saw the trailer and nearly fell asleep. But it's clearly a kids' film, and kids will love it. Number 8, Midnight in Paris. Number 9, Thor. And number 10, Fast and Furious 5. Now, the cinema releases, there's far too many cinema releases out here now. I've got all the trailers, YouTube links for these on the Facebook page, so go have a look on there. There'll be a few more that I won't be able to have time to mention on here. But anyway, we're going to start off with the Green Lantern. Now, in a universe as vast as it is mysterious, a small but powerful force has existed for millenniums. Protectors of peace and justice, they are called the Green Lantern Corps, a brotherhood of warriors formed by the different races from the entire universe sworn to keep intergalactic order. Each Green Lantern wears a ring that grants him superpowers, but when a new enemy called Parallax threatens to destroy the balance of power in the universe, their fate and the fate of the Earth lie in the hands of their newest recruit, the first human ever selected from the Corps, Hal Jordan. Hal is a gifted and cocky test pilot, but the Green Lanterns have little respect for humans who have never harnessed the infinite powers of the ring before. But Hal is clearly missing one piece of the puzzle. Well, Hal is clearly the missing piece of the puzzle, rather, and along with his determination and willpower, he has one thing no member of the Corps has ever had: humanity. With the encouragement of fellow pilot and childhood sweetheart Carol Ferris, Blake Lively, what a ridiculous name. If Hal can quickly master his new powers and find the courage to overcome his fears, he may prove to not only be the key to defeating Parallax, he will become the greatest Green Lantern of all. Now, it also stars Peter Sarsgaard, Mark Strong and Jeffrey Rush. From the trailer, it looks like a typical comic book to movie adaptation. Good will triumph over evil. There's lots of special effects in there and a dash of humour. I'm not wowed by it, but it may be worth a look. Next, we've got Bad Teacher, which is a comedy centred around a foul-mouthed junior high teacher who, after being dumped by a sugar daddy, begins to woo a colleague. A move that pits her against a well-loved teacher. Cameron Diaz, Elizabeth Halsey, Lucy Punch, and Jason Segel and Justin Timberlake, who was pretty good in The Social Network. They're all in this, and at least it stops him singing. I was actually rather surprisingly impressed by the trailer. It looks sharp, witty, slightly rude in a finale sense, and a comedy that actually hits the mark of being funny. Let's hope it maintains that throughout its 92-minute running time. Next up, we've got Swinging with the Finkles, which is the story of Alvin and Ellie, a couple living in London at the breaking point in their relationship. We are in the present day, looking back at eventful moments in their lives. Two young students, Alvin and Ellie, meet at university, fall in and out of love, discuss music, hair and other less important things. Ellie is from the US and they do things differently here. We jump 10 years and they are now married and have a successful careers, but do they have the time for each other? Advised by best friends Peter and Janet, Alvin and Ellie analyse the best and worst bits of their relationship. Do they stay together? Do they have children? Are sex toys good for marriage? Should they swing? Starring Mandy Moore, Martin Freeman, Melissa George and Jerry Stiller. I can't decide whether the trailer makes this look a bit ho-hum or whether it makes it look any good, or whether it's just a bit ho-hum. In fact, I'm veering towards a ho-hum. It might have a few laughs, but they all look a bit forced and pedestrian, so it's not really one to recommend. And also, let's mention the Beaver, which follows the life of depressed toy executive Walter Black, Mel Gibson, who, after being kicked out by his wife, takes on a new persona in which he communicates through a beaver hand puppet. His wife, Jodie Foster, and son are sceptical, but try to accept Walter as a favour to the younger son, who loves the beaver. This film also stars Cherry Jones as the Vice President, who's been downgraded, clearly, from having played the President in 24. Now, the film itself, it doesn't sound great, and Mel Gibson's had many problems in his private life lately, which has led to this film being released at a time where it can't qualify for any awards. Well, certainly won't win any. I thought it was meant to be a comedy too, but it's rather a depressing-looking drama and a pretty tedious one to boot. Okay, so that's that's the cinema releases I've got time for to mention. So there's quite a few others. So I'm going to, later on, I'll put them up on the Facebook page. And all the trailers are there already, so you can have a look there.
106.6.
Now, in this section of the show, we're going to have a look at some of the DVDs out this week, starting with Paul. Now, again, all the trailers for this, etc., on the Facebook page. Now, this one, it's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost from Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead reunite for the comedy adventure Paul as two sci-fi geeks whose pilgrimage takes them on to America's UFO heartland. While there, they accidentally meet an alien who brings them on an insane road trip that alters their universe forever. For the past 60 years, an alien named Paul, voiced by Seth Rogen, has been hanging out at a top-secret military base. For reasons unknown, the space-travelling smartass decides to escape the compound and hop on the first vehicle out of town. A rented RV containing Earthlings Graham Willie Pegg and Clive Collins Nick Frost. Chased by federal agents and the fanatical father of a young woman that they accidentally kidnap, Graham and Clive hatch a fumbling escape plan to return Paul to his mothership. And as two nerds struggle to help, one little green man might just take his fellow outcasts from misfits to intergalactic heroes. Paul is directed by Superbad's Greg Mottola, from a story by Pegg and Frost, and joining the comedy's cast are Jason Bateman, Christine Uig, and Sigourney Weaver. There's lots of special features, including an extended version of the film. Doesn't say how long it is, though. Director's commentary, also featuring Pegg and Frost, blooper reel, and several featurettes. Now, I saw the trailer for this and I nearly gave up chocolate. Now, don't get me wrong, I love space, Shaun of the Dead, and Hot Fuzz, but in Paul, Nick Frost and Simon Pegg just sold out completely and made an American film that's about as funny as a leaky roof. So yeah, that's not what I'm going to go and watch. Next out, here we've got True Grit, which is a powerful story of vengeance and valour set in an unforgiving and unpredictable frontier where justice is simple and mercy is rare. Matty Ross, Haley Steinfeld, is determined to avenge her father's blood by capturing Tom Chaney, Josh Brolin, the man who shot and killed him for 2 pieces of gold. Just 14, she enlists the help of Rooster Cogburn, Jeff Bridges, a one-eyed, trigger-happy US Marshal with an affinity for drinking, and hardened Texas Ranger LaBeouf, Matt Damon, to track the fleeing Chaney. Despite the differences, their ruthless determination leads them on a perilous adventure that can only have one outcome: retribution. The special features on Blu-ray feature, it's quite a few separate featurettes. Now, westerns don't often do a lot for me, and I know this remake was critically acclaimed and was nominated for scores of awards, but of the main ones, it came away with all we got was a BAFTA for Best Cinematography. But overall, it's not a film I'm going to be watching. Also out this week, we've got Psychoville Series 2. We've got more intrigue, suspense, weirdness and laughs in the return of the cliffhanging comedy thriller. After the explosion at Ravenhill Hospital, Mr. Jelly, Joy, David and Maureen Sauberts, Mr. Lomax and Robert just want to get on with their twisted, mad and sad lives. But the shadowy, technologically deprived Grace Andrews and the enigmatic detective Finney are tracking them down one by one in search of Nurse Kensington's locket. Meanwhile, we meet some new but equally bizarre Psychoville characters. Jeremy Good, a librarian tortured by a silent singer as he hunts for 50 Great Coastal Walks of the British Isles Volume 2. Peter Bishop, whose toy shop, Hoity Toity, has a very strange basement. And a desperate and dateless, overworked makeup artist, Hattie. What could they all have to do with the mystery? And why is it truly a matter of life and death? Now, I was going to mention this in the TV review section for the series as a whole, but I'll mention it here now. It's out. compared to the first series, it was all a bit bitty. As various characters were bumped off one by one, it tended to lose its focus a bit, and the final episode was good, but just way too surreal. And there's no suggestion of a third series coming yet, but I don't think it could follow on from what we've had as we've learned the secret of the locket. What I would prefer to have is another series from the same team, but with new characters. Special features on this disc include there's a Halloween special, audio commentaries, Psychoville shorts, and also a featurette called Psychoville Behind the Scenes. Also out this week, we've got Superman, the Complete Collection. The third instalment, no point going through what the films are about. Everyone's seen the Superman films, and certainly don't want to see the fourth one again. That was just unbelievably appalling. But this is something that just for the completists, basically. There's 8 discs. On the first disc, you've got, over the first 2 discs. The first one, you've got the original theatrical version. The second one, you've got an expanded edition. On discs 3 and 4, that takes up Superman 2. Starts off with disc 3 is the original theatrical version, and disc 4 is Richard Donner's director's cut. He was originally directing the second film after he did the first one, and just he got fired halfway through. Disc 5 and 6. You got Superman 3 and 4, which are the original theatrical versions. Disc 7, you got Superman Returns, and disc 8, you got additional bonus material. And the special features, there's over 20 hours of extras, including The Science of Superman, which is a 2006 National Geographic special. Look Up in the Sky, The Amazing Story of Superman. The Adventures of Superboy, a 1961 TV pilot. And You Will Believe, The Cinematic Saga of Superman. Plus there's commentaries, featurettes, and much more. There's also some TV series out this week, including Exile, which is the one starring John Simmons and Jim Broadbent. Injustice, which is a 5-part psychological thriller on ITV recently. And the Time Tunnel Complete series. And also, if it's for you, the Eurovision Song Contest from 2011. Well, if you want to really watch that again, I know I certainly don't. There's also some Blu-ray first-time releases. We've got Cross of Iron, The Cruel Sea, Ice Cold in Alex, Le Mans with Steve McQueen, Sex Pistols, They'll Always Be in England, and Witchfinder General, which was actually on TV the other night. Now we're going to have a look at some film news just before the top of the hour. We've got Tom Hanks, who's going to star as action figure Major Matt Mason. Tom Hanks' Playtone Productions will produce a 3D movie based on 60s action figure Major Matt Mason, with the actor looking to take the lead role. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Major Matt Mason is one of the 3 adaptations that Playtone has lined up, the other 2 being a TV version of Neil Gaiman's American Gods for HBO and a film based on Green Day's American Idiot musical. Major Matt Mason was an astronaut action figure who took part in imaginary adventures on the moon in the 1960s. After initially being reality-based, the brand verged towards sci-fi territory as Mason took on aliens led by Captain Laser. Frequent Hanks collaborator Robert Zemeckis is in talks to direct the new 3D live-action film, working from a screenplay by Hanks and Graham Yost, who was also responsible for Speed and Broken Arrow. The film has a tentative budget of $100 million, and Playtone Productions previously produced IMAX documentary Magnificent Desolation, Walking on the Moon 3D. And Tom Hanks will next be seen in Larry Crown, which he also directed. That opens on July the 1st. And now the Trip tops the specialty market in the US. While J.J. Abrams' Super 8 exceeded expectations at the studio box office, Michael Winterbottom's The Trip led debuts in the specialty market, taking in decent numbers for a distributor, IFC Films. The film, which follows fictionalised versions of actors Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon as they stop at some of the best restaurants and inns in the north of England, grossed a respectable $84,000 from 6 theatres in New York and Los Angeles. That amounted to a $14,000 per theatre average, which was the second highest average reported. It topped Winterbottom's last release, the vastly different The Killer Inside Me, which IFC Films released almost exactly a year ago, to an $11,000 average. IFC will roll out the trip to the top 20 markets on Friday, which will be a much bigger test to the film's appeal. Now, the US release is a 107-minute version of the 6 30-minute episodes broadcast here in the UK earlier this year. I really enjoyed it, even though it was a bit of a slow burner and often downbeat, but it had a style that I think was served best with 6 separate episodes, and I don't think it would work when chopped down to 2/3 of its length. Still, I'm glad that it's had the recognition that it deserves, and I hope that this leads to a second series, as it was a very comfortable watch and did have some progression as it went along. Now, if you're a fan of the Coen brothers, you'll be interested to know they may be making a music-intensive project for the next film. The Coen brothers have no problem picking and choosing what they want to do next, and might be utilising music as a major part of their next film. While Joan and Ethan Coen were gathered with Noah Baumbach to discover film intros at the new Eleanor Bunin Monroe Film Centre in New York, they briefly touched on what appears to be an unannounced project. The Coen brothers have a long list of potential projects, but seem to suggest this unnamed film is what they're working on now. The film was brought up when an audience member mentioned a quote from 20 years ago, when the Coens had said they wanted no part of a musical because playback, lip-sync to recorded music in a scene, was irksome. This is what the Coens had to say. Ethan said, "That's funny. I don't remember playback being especially vexed in the USO scene of Barton Fink. My Brother, Where Art Thou had a lot of music in it, which was a mix of everything from live performance, on-camera performance, and a lot of playback, and it's funny we said that." Joel said, "I don't actually remember saying that, or why we may have said it, but there are certain cumbersome aspects of production that you get used to. We used quite a bit of playback on Oh Brother." Noah said, "And now you're working on a movie that has quite a bit of music to it." Joel, "We're working on a movie now that has music in it, but it's pretty much all performed live, single instrument, so it's hard to tell." Now, while they were pretty vague about the project, the Coen brothers did mention that the project is not being written with any particular actors in mind. The way they phrase things, it appears this is definitely an original creation and not one of the numerous adaptations or remakes they have set as future projects. Joel elaborated, "In adaptations that we've done, even if we have ended up using the same actors, they have, generally speaking, been written because the characters are presented to you in an adaptation. So they're written without regard to who's necessarily going to play them, from our point of view. But in stories that we're coming up with ourselves, it's frequently the case that we write for specific people. Although I have to say, the musical thing we're doing now, we're not writing specifically for any of the parts, which is unusual for us." Okay, so that's your film news for this week, and that's everything for the top of the hour. And in the second hour, we've got a mixture of video games and TV, starting with a review of Star Raiders on the Xbox 360, one of the retro offerings on the Xbox Live Arcade.
106.6.
That was Billy Joel with My Life, but he's not really singing about My Life, because if he was, he'd be making a song about doing the DVD Fever show with Don Robinson on Manchester's 106.6. Oh, what a swish link that was. Right, now into the second hour, and we're now looking at video games and TV. So the first half of this hour, we're looking at video games. And first of all, we'll start off with a review of Star Raiders on the Xbox 360. There are the top 10 games charts. A look at the new video games releases, including Alice the Madness Returns and a Nintendo 64 Classic on the 3DS, plus some video games news. The TV stuff we'll be looking at In with the Flynns on BBC One. And I'll tell you about a flash mob I took part in last Wednesday to celebrate the 50th episode of Ideal, which was broadcast last Thursday. There's also a look ahead to Luther, which starts tonight, and also some TV news as well. Okay, so Star Raiders on the Xbox 360. Now, there's some gaming footage for this on the Facebook page, so if you search for the DVD Fever show with Don Robinson on Facebook, you'll be able to see it. Originally on the Atari 800 in 1979, I saw Star Raiders when it was released on the Atari VCS in September 82. It had a separate keypad especially made for it, but there's just your joypad to go on here. Can you remember all the controls? Well, it doesn't matter, because what we have here is a very bog standard into-the-screen shooter, aiming at everything that's red in your scanner after flying towards it, often with it zooming past and you have to turn around for another go. It doesn't take too long to bat them out of existence, however. Once they're dead, a nondescript ball will fly towards you. At first I was just blowing these up, thinking it was a final shot from them, but when one hit me, I realised it gives you salvage credits, which you can then use between missions to upgrade weapons and get an android to work with you. Although I must admit I didn't play this long enough to see the result of that, for reasons which will become apparent. Star Raiders is certainly nowhere near as complex as I remember the original. And while each mission starts with a big long piece of text, it's not really worth reading because you'll know what to do when you start playing. Especially where to shoot, given the scanner and distance reading that's displayed when you face and approach the enemy. Once the mission is done, your galactic chart will appear, and you'll then zoom between sectors by going through hyperspace like the original. Although here you'll just appear at the start of the next mission. Also, early on in the game, something went radically wrong with the controls, such as the game refused to budge from giving me the attack configuration, which always put the pitch stroke roll thing on the left stick on your joypad. Going back to the control menu, I tried to select the assault or turret options, which are the other ones, which just basically what I started off on, but despite it telling me it had saved my choice, it hadn't. As such, the gameplay would have made me look rather an idiot. I was not that bad. But then somehow it changed back mid-level. Before I could celebrate, however, it all went wrong again and quickly changed back. For a long time I had no idea why, but then I realised it was the transform button, which is on the left shoulder. How does that override the main control menu? Overall, the graphics in this game aren't much to write home about, and nor is the sound. It's all bog standard stuff. Although for Duran Duran aficionados, they will hear a segment of the chauffeur from the 1981 Rio album thrown into the background music. If you want to see the video to that, just search for that on YouTube. That's interesting. Gameplay-wise, this is just one pedestrian dogfight after another. It's slow. How can travelling at fast speeds in space feel slow? But it does here. You never feel threatened. You can quickly respawn. And from the sound, it always seems like there's a lot more going on behind you than in front. It's a nice idea to revive classic games, and in some cases they will work, such as with Pac-Man on the Xbox Live Arcade. But despite the tarted-up graphics, this one will still look very dated by comparison. The graphics I give 6 out of 10, sound 5, playability 5, and enjoyment 4. So overall, 5 out of 10. If it's something you want to get, you can get it on Xbox Live Arcade. It only costs you 800 Microsoft points, which is about £6. Now that's your review for you. Now, just before the charts, we're going to have a little bit of a listen to Marley Harwood. It's called A Heart. This is Manchester's 106.6.
106.6.
That was Marley Harwood, which with It's Called A Heart, which is something my last girlfriend didn't have. But anyway, I listened to the DVDfever show with Don Robinson, and we're now looking at the video games charts. Starting with the top 10. Number 1 again, we've got LA Noire. Number 2, it's up for Lego Pirates of the Caribbean. Number 3, it's down for Dirt 3. Number 4, Zumba Fitness. Number 5, Brink. Number 6, Wii Sports Resort. Number 7, it's up for Call of Duty Black Ops. Number 8, it's just down slightly for FIFA 11. It's up to number 9 from number 12. It's for Portal 2. And we've got a new entry at number 10 for The Sims 3 Generations. Enjoy a whole spectrum of rich life experiences with your Sims. Start off in the imagine-fueled world of childhood and embrace the drama of the teen years. Experience the complicated realities of adult life, then reap the benefits of growing up in each life stage. A wealth of options and activities make your Sims' lives more meaningful than ever before, whatever their age is. With new celebrations, dramatic life events, and all new ways for your Sims to express their creativity, The Sims 3 Generations lets your Sims live life to the fullest. It says that Sims of every age can enjoy new activities, kids can hang out with friends in tree houses, teens can pull hilarious pranks, adults can suffer midlife crises. If you're going to have one in real life, why do you want to have one in a game? Anyway, whether it's a raging all-teen party while the parents are out, a high school graduation or official wedding ceremony, new celebrations make every age more fun. All the new activities, celebrations and drama are easier than ever to remember and reminisce about, with a new memories system that keeps track of major life moments and also lets you share them on Facebook. Also in the charts at number 14 we've got Hunted, The Demon's Forge. Powered by the Unreal 3 engine, this is a fresh take on the classic fantasy game that delivers the intensity and action of a modern-day shooter. Taking control of either Elara, a ranged weapon expert, or Kadok, a master swordsman, you and your partner will descend into a dark and foreboding world for an unforgettable cooperative experience. As you travel deep within the world of Karla Moor, you will use a variety of deadly weapons, powerful spells, and cover tactics to face down wave after wave of vicious enemies. It will take the combined efforts of two great warriors to explore menacing dungeons, overgrown ruins, and downtrodden towns, and discover the secrets of the Demon's Forge. Now, I put the gameplay trailer of this online a little while ago, and it showed the scantily clad Elara being controlled by the player, running about with a bow and arrow, while the other one running alongside, controlled by the console, looking like he had ants in his pants. And gameplay-wise, it didn't exactly wow me, but it did look utterly gorgeous and had a fantastic atmosphere to it. Re-entries include Virtua Tennis 4 at number 23, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 at number 36, and Little Big Planet 2 at 39. Excuse me. Now we've got some video games releases coming out this Friday. Starting off with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D. Now there's trailers to all these games on the Facebook page. We've got excuse me. It's a reimagining of the original Nintendo 64 classic from 1998. The game features a full original game graphically overhauled in the glasses-free 3D made possible by the Nintendo 3DS. Along with this, the game includes all new challenges unique to this release, including a Master Quest, a new boss challenge mode that allows for flexibility in how you face bosses, and some in-game video segments. The game couples phenomenally enhanced graphics with stunning glasses 3D visuals to bring to life the daring adventures of its hero Link. There's a streamlined touchscreen interface and a newly implemented motion controls provide a fresh and intuitive feel as players immerse themselves in the tale of the creation of the Hyrule and struggle for control of its all-powerful ancient relic. The game will also feature new challenges not included in the original game, and the Legend of Zelda veterans can look forward to Master Quest, a second quest with revamped puzzles and redesigned dungeons that feature the same graphical and interface upgrades as the main game. This is a masterful improvement on one of the landmark releases in the video game industry. It says here. Now, I've never had a Nintendo 64 and I haven't got a 3DS. And from what I've seen, the Link games aren't my bag anyway. But isn't this a bit desperate of Nintendo to rehash a 13-year-old game for a new handheld? The 3DS has come under fire for a lot of the games not being exactly fantastic, and sometimes the eye strain can cause people to reduce or switch off the 3D effect, which rather kills the point of having one. Now have a look at Alice, Madness Returns. Now this game delves deep into the dark and violent side of the imagination, creating a nightmarish wonderland where Alice must face the demons that haunt her visions. Visit the grim reality of Victorian London, and then travel to the beautiful yet ghastly Wonderland to uncover the root of Alice's madness and discover the truth behind a deadly secret kept hidden for years. 11 years ago, a horrific fire took Alice's family from her and left her mind horrifically scarred. Afterwards, she was confined to Rutledge Asylum, where she struggled to confront her demons by slipping further into a fantasy world of Wonderland. Now, after 10 years, she has finally secured her release, yet she still bears the heavy psychological burden of that tragic event. With her mind in tatters, she is unable to resolve the fear prompted by strange memories, dreams and visions. Perhaps she'll do better in Wonderland. She always has. She travels there seeking what the real world can't provide, security, knowledge and the truth about the past. But in her absence, Wonderland too has suffered. Something has gone horribly wrong, and now a great evil is descending upon what was once her beautiful refuge. Can Alice save Wonderland and herself from the madness that consumes them both? Now, the original game was one I was most looking forward to. Alas, disappointment was on the schedule. when you're presented with stylish graphics demonstrating a wickedly dark behaviour and based upon a tweaked version of the Quake 3 engine, it was let down by Alice's movement, particularly when jumping, which is jerky, and as you leap from platform to platform, it was all too easy to fall between the cracks and hit the ground below, unless you're lucky enough to tumble into a bottomless pit. When seeing the gameplay footage of this one, which is on the Facebook page, it doesn't look like things have improved vastly. The music from 9 Inch Nails became overbearing after a while, and also it was way too linear game. And also the sequel's been too long a time as coming as well. Been 10 years since the original. Why so long? Anyway, I say, have a look at there's the gameplay footage on the Facebook page, so you search for the DVD Fever Show with Dom Robinson, and you'll be able to see exactly what I'm talking about. There's also gameplay footage for the Demon Siege 3, which is out this week. But the role-playing games are not my bag, so I'm certainly not going to be playing that one. But in a moment we're going to have some video games news. But just before that, we're going to have the KLF and Tammy Wynette, Justified and Ancient.
106.6.
That was Justified and Ancient by Tammy Wynette and KLF, the band who once burned £1 million and filmed it all. Good for them. I listened to the DVD Fever Show with Dom Robinson, and I listened to Manchester's 106.6, and now I've got a bit of video games news for you, starting with a space-saving solver for the Xbox Kinect. Now, for anyone who's tried this, well, you've been playing it with one of these, you'll know what I'm talking about. One of the biggest problems with Microsoft's controllerless motion system Kinect was the fact that it required quite a bit of real estate to function properly. A minimum of 6 feet from the camera seemed to be the sweet spot. But even at that distance, there's been experiencing problems with gameplay. Small apartment living rooms may now be able to accommodate Kinect with Nyko's Zoom for Kinect accessory. Thanks to a series of what we describe as an arrangement of wide-angle lenses, the Snap-on accessory sits over the standard Kinect array and drops the space prerequisite by 40%. Tests have shown that the Nyko Zoom does deliver a true Kinect experience in a much smaller space. However, it's reported that standing closer to the screen during a Kinect session does have its inherent drawbacks. Just like in a cinema, no one ever really wants to sit too close to the screen. That said, Zoom for Kinect may just solve the space issues, preventing some customers from taking the plunge. It's probably the only accessory Kinect will ever get, and that's music to a retailer's ears. It also might leave Microsoft wondering, why didn't we think of that? Zoom for Kinect will be available in the US for $30 when it's available on August 16th, but sadly there's no date in the UK for it just yet. Now on the Kinect theme, Mass Effect 3 is to feature Kinect support on the Xbox 360, and this has been confirmed by the makers BioWare. The final game in the Mass Effect trilogy will allow players to issue voice commands using Kinect's vocal recognition. Players will be able to issue squad commands during combat, as well as choose dialogue options when interacting with NPCs. The announcement was made by BioWare CEO Ray Mazuika during Microsoft press conference at this year's E3 event in Los Angeles. In-game footage showed Commander Shepard meeting up and chatting with Mass Effect 2 scientist Borden before a combat scenario broke out. Mass Effect 3 will be released in 2012. Now, if you're a fan of the Wii, you're also going to be interested to hear about the new Nintendo gaming console, which has been called the Wii U. With rumours swirling about Nintendo's next home console, much of the excitement leading up to E3 was simply to find out exactly what it was. And although the system's silly name didn't endear any critics, many at the press conference laughed at the reveal, thinking it was meant to be a joke, the new controller certainly turned heads. Closer to resembling an iPad than a conventional controller, the Wii U controller is packed with everything from a touchscreen to a microphone and traditional buttons. An important feature is that it supports all current Wii software and controllers, including Wii remotes and the balance board. However, one of the more interesting changes in the Wii U is the lack of GameCube backwards compatibility. The Wii included ports for GameCube controllers and memory cards, neither of which appeared to be built into the Wii U systems at E3. The new controller is what really sets the Wii U apart from other game consoles. In the centre of the controller is a 6.2-inch 16 by 9 touchscreen, and it has a touchscreen like the DS and the 3DS, which can be used with either a finger or the included stylus. And one of the games is called Chase Me, which is it's got nothing to do with Duncan Norvell. Bit of an 80s reference there. Chase Me was easily the most fun and instantly accessible game in the world on demonstration at E3. It's a simple game of hide and seek, with 4 players controlling Mii's, or your avatars, with Wii remotes, trying to catch a 5th player who controls a Mii in a Mario suit on the Wii U controller. Got that? Probably make more sense when you play it, I expect, like a lot of games do. It's like there's no point reading the lists and lists and lists of controls. You just get into the game and you'll soon get the hang of it. Anyway, the Wii U will be released sometime next year. And one last little bit of video games news. The Rock Band 3 is to get an Ozzy Osbourne pack. And there's going to be 8 songs in this. And the studio Harmonix is launching the bundle to coincide with the 30th anniversary of the artist's landmark solo albums Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. Its track listing comprises Bark at the Moon, Diary of a Madman, Flying High Again, I Don't Know, Mama I'm Coming Home, Mr. Crowley, Over the Mountain, and Steal Away the Night. Rock Band 3 was released on multiple formats last November, and early this month Harmonix pledged its support to the franchise despite the decline in the rhythm action genre. Okay, that's all your video games news and video games in total for this week. And after the song rather, we're going to be having a look at a couple of things from last week. It was In with the Flins, which is a new sitcom on BBC One, and what I got up to at the Ideal Flash Mob at BBC Media City UK in Salford.
106.6.
And listening to the DVD Fever show with Don Robinson on Manchester 106.6. And in this final half hour of the show, we're going to be having a look at some of the TV stuff. Watched a couple of things in the last week, and looked to what's coming up, and also some TV news. Now, I watched In with the Flins on Wednesday last week. I didn't recommend it last week. I just said I was going to talk about it this week. It looked like a traditional style of sitcom with canned laughter and not many laughs. There were some positives. It's filmed in Manchester. Also, it deals with flashbacks to various situations, which speeds up the pace a bit. The negatives were it has this ridiculous fake film effect, like a lot of things, and it's also not very funny. The premise is that young parents Liam and Caroline Flynn are working extra shifts to save up for a holiday, but who's looking after the kids? Chloe gets a piercing in her tongue, Steve has a run-in with a school bully, and Mikey eats food left out in the back of restaurants. This is all because Liam's brother Tommy fills the breach with his own idiosyncratic brand of parenting. Meanwhile, Liam's dad Jim has met a woman at a car boot sale. She seems perfect, but Caroline thinks she has met her before, and that Jim's romantic intentions are doomed to failure. Can they warn him before he makes the move? Well, some of the things that happened, there was Jim, played by Warren Clark, who enthused about buying a whole suit from a car boot sale for less than £5. Will Mellor's kids were getting free bread rolls that were thrown out from a bakery because they were crunchy. One of his kids was also getting bullied at school, and turned out he'd turned the tables on the bullies by the end. And Uncle Tommy lives with them and tried to teach the bullied lad how to fight. Overall, it was like a working class alternative to My Family. The kids are given very underwritten roles and jokes, but hey, the canned laughter audience absolutely loved it, unlike any of the real audience. Now, something else happened last week. On Wednesday, there was an Ideal Flash Mob at BBC Media City UK. This is something I put together about the day, about what happened, and this is on put this on my website, dvdfever.co.uk. So if you have a look on there. Okay, now something a bit different. But basically, happened in Salford, there was a flash mob planned to celebrate the 50th episode of Ideal, which is now in its 7th series on BBC Three. I'd never been to a flash mob before, so I had no idea what to expect. All I knew was that I'm a massive fan of Ideal. It was used to take place at the Lowry Outlet Mall in Salford, which I'd never been to before. Damn my sat-nav telling me to bear left, then bear right. Wouldn't it just be easier if Google Maps just painted the lines on all the roads? It would only have to be done bit temporary pain that'll wash off after a few hours. And I'll even help with that, honest. And the rehearsals were at 11 o'clock at the new BBC Media City UK Centre. Upon arrival, I met with Jill Isles, the producer of Baby Cow Productions, who set up the event, and then upstairs on the 5th floor we gathered in a room where the rehearsals were due to take place. While the dance was a bit more complicated than I thought, it took me a while to figure out that the shape we were making was of a 50, if that'll last if you looked at it from above. Not that there were any overhead cameras in them all to pick up on that, though. It was easy to get to grips with the formation after a number of rehearsal attempts, and with the lead dancers at the front and everyone just having to follow the next person in line and ensure where they know where they stand, that made things a lot easier. That took us up until around 12:40, and then after a 30-minute break, and thankfully a break in the dreadful weather, we walked in single file, cartoon head masks over our faces, over to them all, making our way past a great number of bemused spectators, wondering what on earth was going on. And even more so when we arrived at the food court to a special area that was set out for us. Once the music began, to the show's theme, Song of the Os by Candidate, we got into place, then all turned to face the front and raise, then lower the cartoon head masks as directed. There was a bit of a hiccup with the audio as it was meant to subsequently have Johnny Vegas shouting, "Do you want a biscuit?" But it cut out mid-biscuit, and then as the theme began to play as we left, again in single file, it stopped soon after it began. It all smoothed over in the final edit, though, so I'm sure Cartoon Head will still give it a thumbs up. Among the 50 or so cartoon heads present at the event, and from the show, were the excellent Seymour Mace, who played twins Steve and Craig in Series 1 to 5, and Peter Slater, who played God-fearing Boilerman Alan from Series 3 to 5. If you've not seen either of them live, you're really missing out. Although I have to confess I haven't seen them together in their Sundyland project. And while I was there, I also met some people from the Ideal Forum, Persia, who was real name Steve, and Moo, real name Neil, plus some of the others. I'm sorry I didn't catch everyone's name, including those who were stood either side of me during the flash mob itself and the rehearsals. Afterwards, once a number of photos were taken back at the BBC, upstairs in the rehearsal room and downstairs in the foyer, and also in one of the lifts, at around 2 o'clock we were all done and said our goodbyes. I had a wonderful time and I said I'd love to do something like that again in the future. You can also see a video of the event on the Facebook page for that as well. And that piece that I wrote about it, passed it on to Jill and asked her, if she wanted to pass it on to anyone else involved down there. And she said she showed it to some of the producers and also Graham Duff, who writes the Right Side Deal, and he replied nicely, which was rather nice, I thought. Now, I've got to look ahead at something that's coming up. Luther, that returns tonight. It's a wonderful cop drama with Idris Elba, who's from, you mostly remember from The Wire, who's also in Thor. He returns as maverick cop John Luther. And this is a show I've been looking forward to more than the return of most. Now, the final scene... Well, I want to see how they get out of the final scene, because at the end of the final scene, end of the last series, the rogue cop Ian, played by Stephen McIntosh, had shot Luther's estranged wife Zoe, played by Indira Varma, who was now in a relationship with Mark, played by Paul McGann. Now, all culminated in a train station where I'm trying to see how I can put this. Alice, who's played by Ruth Wilson, who's just an absolute nut job, she had a shotgun, and there was her, Luther, as well as Ian, as well. There was her, Luther, and Mark, and they all had to decide whether or not they were going to shoot Ian. Luther, trying to be sensible, said no. She said, I say yes, but then she's nuts. And so the final choice was with Paul McGann, who didn't think, and he just said yes. So they blasted Stephen McIntosh into next week, and then it ended with just the sound of cop cars coming, and Luther saying, "Now what?" And then that's how it ended. Now the trailer hasn't shown how they get out of that, so I'm going to be very intrigued to see what happens with that, and that returns at 9 o'clock tonight. But the basic thing that it says here is, still plagued by the death of his ex-wife, Luther returns to work to face a surreal and nightmarish case of a masked murderer determined to enter into folklore. As the body count rises, Luther must use all his skills to stop the killer, at the same time trying to rescue an old acquaintance's daughter from the dangerous world of prostitution. And it stars Andrew Tiernan, Nikki Amuka Bird, Sean Pertwee and Paul Rees. Other shows that return this week include a second series of James May's Toy Stories, 11th series of 8 out of 10 Cats, which is just... Thankfully, it's only in a 30-minute version this time round. Before, it just tried to extend itself to about 50 minutes, and I got bored of it. But hopefully, it'll be shorter. Hopefully, more tight this time round. Now, there's also a repeat of Miranda Hart's first series on BBC One prior to Series 3 starting in the autumn, also on BBC One.
106.6.
And now we're going to take a look at a little bit of TV news, just in the final section of this show. Our first bit of news is that Vic and Bob are to star in an online sketch show. Vic and Bob's Afternoon Delights will see the comics introduce a group of never-seen-before characters to surprise and delight their legion of fans. The new series follows in the wake of Alan Partridge's Mid-Morning Matters, the internet series starring Steve Coogan, which is also sponsored by a beer brand and was as such a success is now transferring to TV. Vic and Bob's new series launches on 4th of July on fostersfunny.co.uk, with new sketches airing every weekday until the start of August. Characters are set to include a pair of UFO hunters, and July is also the month that Shooting Stars is expected to return to BBC Two for another series. Speaking about the project, Vic Reeves said, "Foster's has given us the freedom to let our imaginations run wild and present to you via the internet some exclusive characters and sketches." Another bit of news is that Sharon Horgan is to host a new comedy chat show pilot based around awkward social situations. Horgan, best known for co-writing and starring in BBC Three comedy Pulling, as well as appearing in sitcoms Free Agents, Angelos, and the increasingly poor decisions of Todd Margaret, is being lined up to host Guilty Party. The format is being developed by Hat-Trick Productions, the makers of Have I Got News For You and Outnumbered. In Guilty Party, guests will be owning up to gaffes and blunders and coming up with some rules and tips for dealing with awkward situations. The producers say Guilty Party is about awkward social situations and doing the wrong thing, from the unwritten rules of pub etiquette to the nightmare that is having to introduce someone whose name you've forgotten. These awkward situations crop up every day, leading to embarrassment, shame and guilt. Also, we've got the news that John Bishop's Written is to get a second series. The confirmation comes after Objective Productions issued a call for extras in February to share their stories on a second series of the show. Hosted by John Bishop, the format sees a Liverpudlian comedian presenting viewers with a mix of stand-up sketches and real-life stories from members of the great British public. The new series, made up of 6 half-hour episodes, will be broadcast on BBC One this summer on Saturday nights. As in Series 1, the programmes will be filmed in front of a live audience in Manchester and present viewers with a mix of stand-up and real-life stories from celebrities and members of the great British public. Bishop will again perform a stand-up set based on universal themes, this time including topics such as food, music and fashion, friends and pets. John Bishop says, "I'm thrilled that BBC One has agreed to a second series and just hope that everyone enjoys it as much as the first one." The first series of John Bishop's Britain proved popular with the public in its Saturday night slot, averaging 4.2 million viewers per episode. Executive producer Lee Hupfield says, "After such a successful first series, we're delighted John Bishop's Britain has been recommissioned for a second. It's a fantastic feel-good family show, and it's great to be working with John again." The BBC's Carl Warner adds, "John continues to go from strength to strength as a performer, and has quickly established himself as the part of the comedy elite on BBC One. We love working with him, and we think this second series is going to get even better." Now, this next bit is some bad news if you're a fan of this particular show, because Candy Cabs has been closed down by BBC One. The BBC has confirmed that Candy Cabs, its comedy drama about a group of northern women establishing their own taxi firm, will not return for a second series. Reportedly, the show has been canned after viewing figures slumped during the course of the series, which was broadcast in April. The first episode of the three-part series attracted 5.48 million viewers, which is a 22.5% share of the audience, which was above the 5.09 million average for the show's 9 o'clock time slot. However, the following two episodes achieved ratings of 4.27 million and 3.62 respectively, averaging just under 4.5 million over the course of the series. A spokeswoman for the BBC told broadcast, "Unfortunately, we will not be bringing Candy Cabs back, but we're looking forward to seeing more from the team behind the show, and we're already talking to them about new ideas." The series, with its trademark fleet of bright pink Citroen vehicles, came into heavy criticism before airing and throughout its run due to the storyline's similarity to the 1963 British comedy classic Carry On Cabby, starring Sid James. It also attracted criticism for writing that was seen as weak, inconsistent, and showed limited knowledge of the programme's subject business. Candy Cab's cancellation will be seen as a blow to producer Splash Media, who spent almost 4 years developing the series for television. And also got news that Peep Show writers are creating a new comedy drama for Channel 4. Sam Bain and Jesse Armstrong, the writers behind comedies including Peep Show, The Old Guys, and Four Lions, are creating a new university-based comedy drama for Channel 4 dubbed The Young Ones Meets This Life. Based in the city of Manchester, Fresh Meat will follow the lives of 6 students sharing a house who are all starting out at university in the city. Channel 4 have initially ordered 8 45-minute episodes from producers. The comedy drama is set to star stand-up comedian Jack Whitehall and in-betweeners actor Joe Thomas. Also signed up as regulars are Greg McHugh from Gary Tank Commander, Kimberly Nixon from Cranford, Charlotte Ritchie from British classical girl band No Angels, and Zor Ashton from St Trinian's 2. Tony Gardner, best known as cafe owner Michael from Lead Balloon, is also set to appear. Whitehall will play a public school boy with an inflated sense of entitlement, while Joe Thomas takes on the role of a charming, lovable, and crushingly insecure student. Other characters include a socially awkward know-it-all, an overly enthusiastic fresher, and a student who is desperate to be cool and terrified of being boring. The series is currently being filmed on production stages of Manchester's Sharp Project facility and on location around the city, and when finished later in the year, Fresh Meats will air in a post-watershed slot on Channel 4. Channel 4's Camilla Campbell says, "I'm delighted to be able to announce our exciting cast of the best of today's talent for a brand new comedy series for Channel 4. Sam and Jesse are bringing their customary incisive comedy to the drama output, and the result is hilarious and painfully truth series about being a student." Okay, that's all your TV news and basically everything for this week. So thank you very much to everyone who's been listening. So all the trailers and whatnot for everything are on the Facebook page. So if you search for the DVD Fever show with Dom Robinson, and when you're on that page, do like it. So basically until next week, when we'll have 2 hours more of movies, video games and TV.